Welcome to Mac and Bleu, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things Mac and Bleu, head to www.macandbleu.com and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Mac and Bleu. I'm JJ Levinsky, your host, CEO and co-founder of Blue Wave General Contracting. Today, now don't laugh everyone, I should know this as a Polak, I should get this Russian name right away, but Sergei Guk, the CEO, extraordinaire of RestorationHQ. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I think that if I go back, I started spying on you guys a while back, and then I think I connected with some people in your organization, and then finally I was like, cool, I get to get Sergei on here. So we were joking before we got on air about, what did I say? It's the small world, and you were saying large village. I think that's a great saying. So with that, Sergei, if you could, let the audience know a little bit more about you before we get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about with restoration and entrepreneurship, and who the hell knows where we're going to take it after that. But just a little bit about you and the organization first and foremost.
Okay, I'll start with a little background. I mean, you talk about Polish and Russian. So obviously I was born in Russia. We moved here on July 28th of 94 as a religious refugees.
Wow.
My mother's side of the family is Jewish, so Russia discriminates against the Jews. So we got a ticket out, believe it or not, on a green card lottery that my grandfather's brother's wife kind of got it. So United States shipped us out. We landed in Arizona. There was a policy. You had to go where the family was. If not, you pay for the trip.
Really?
I remember walking out Sky Harbor. It was like 9 o'clock at night and asking, why do people live here and what are they doing here? Because it was hot. I thought we were behind the jetway, behind the airplane. And my aunt laughed at me. She's like, it's 93 right now. It'll be 117 tomorrow. And I've been here ever since.
Did you know English?
No, nothing. Age-wise, I was supposed to go to 5th grade, but I went to 4th to learn English. 3 months into it, I realized I can pick it up because I was submerged in it.
Wow.
And then I got dragged into attorney meetings and immigration meetings and doctor meetings because I was translating for my mom and my grandparents. So then I really realized that the world is complex. And there's a memory that sticks in my mind. It was my mom was buying a 1992 Nissan Stanza, a little tiny car.
Sean still got one of those in his driveway.
It was like $4,000, and she was trying to get a loan, and nobody would give it to her because she had no credit history. And I remember this moment, like my mother's always done what she said she was going to. She's an honest person. Everything was good. And I realized that the system in the world didn't care about it. So ever since then, I've been trying to get somewhere, do something. And I guess you could say I'm living the American dream, right? You move here, you go to school, you get a job, you build something out of it, and you start a family and become a productive member of society. I've checked most of them. I don't know if they're a productive member of society yet.
He forgot to pay the taxes part, but that's beside the point.
Putin's got me covered. We're good. I'm safe. So
don't pay any more than you have to.
Exactly. So that's kind of how my family, everything got here. I was not what you would classify as a perfect student or a good student at all.
Who the hell
or
is?
A student, period. I didn't go to school often, but I remember starting my senior year, and my principal was like, you got 4.5 credits, you need 20 to graduate. You're not graduating. You're never going to have a job that pays you $100,000 a year. You should get used to being basically broke and know where to go.
Well, that's words of encouragement, huh?
It actually was.
Oh.
I found a charter school, and I took English 8 hours a day for weeks until I tested all the way out, and then math, and then everything else. And I did graduate with my graduating class, just in a different school.
Wow.
So I think that was a second wake-up moment.
So you really buckled down there.
That hurt. It hurt a lot. And then I knew college wasn't the thing. So I had a buddy who worked at a restoration company. He called me and said, hey, I know you have no job. You have nothing to do. Come help us. And I went, and they bought us pizza. I said, so you get paid and they feed you? And he said, yes. And then I learned that there's science behind it, evaporation rate and physics and all of those. And science always made sense to me. So did math.
Okay.
2 + 2 is 4. That's how it is. That's just, it's 4. And that is, I think, when I got addicted to the restoration industry. I loved the challenge. I guess sometimes it makes me feel like a firefighter, right? You're running into the storm. You're running into a building that's flooded. Everybody's in panic. You got to design the scope. You got to play within the rules. You got to protect human life. There's all these layers that went into it, and I became addicted. There was a time when I laughed and said, my employers are paying me to do something I would do for free. I was loving it that much.
Pretty cool.
It's changed a little bit since then.
Yeah, but
entrepreneurship can challenge those things. But that's how I got into restoration. And I dove in as deep as I could and obtained as much as I could. And I think I got pretty decent at it.
So then that's an incredible, and not to patronize you, but that's an incredible story just from the get-go. So then now you're obviously working for someone. When did it switch over to when you became the true entrepreneur, when you took the leap of faith to either buy out or start where you are now?
It's almost a sad story.
Okay. Well, do tell.
Also Russian family.
Okay.
Also immigrants. Mm-hmm. Knew their son, knew them, started working for them right around my senior year, so around 18. I needed money. So I started working for them. I came on, I was the second employee they ever hired. The company was very, very small. We operated out of a self-storage unit, one of those roll-up doors, a bunch of fans in it, an RV spot with 2 little box trucks in it. That was the whole company. It was fun at first.
Yeah.
It was small. I mean, let's put it this way. We're an emergency service contractor. We would turn the phone off for 4 weeks to take a vacation. That's how small we were. There was no business we were going to miss.
Right.
I think it was like 120 grand a year they did in total sales.
Oh.
So I come on, start working for them. My best friend was the first employee that they hired. So it was awesome. I was hanging out with my friend. We were building it up. We were taking care of things. Long story short, he ends up getting fired due to different things. And now I am the only employee. And we buckled down and started growing.
Okay.
08 comes around. Home builders send us letters saying we're not paying you invoices. We're filing bankruptcies. 64% roughly of our revenue was up in the air. We just secured a new building, got new trucks, all of that. So we were spiraling down.
Ouch.
We went to commercial.
Uh-huh.
Commercial properties were using the same residential companies, complaining about the results. I said, well, I've got this knowledge. I feel comfortable with what I'm doing. Let's go to the audience that understands it, that values it. So I switched to commercial. So fast forward, now I'm 12 years with this employer. We're north of 4 million. They're ready to retire. I said, you want to retire? I want to grow. Sell it to me. But I have no money because you know what you're paying me. And I was getting paid under 6 figures at that time.
Right.
And they said, okay, well, let's put together a plan to try to help you buy it out. Well, we know how that plays out. That didn't get anywhere. They wanted way too much. I wanted to pay what it was worth. We didn't get anywhere.
More than that, yeah.
So the bank told me the business was worth about $900K. They wanted 1.8. I offered 1.2 with an owner carry.
Yeah, typical.
They laughed at me, said, go find your own money.
Got it.
So I said, I quit. Here's my 4 months resignation notice. So I resigned on September 2nd, which was my 12-year anniversary. And they kept me for about almost 4 months. And what happened is a friend of mine who was also my subcontractor, he and I were having lunch, and I said, hey, Tom, thanks for all the help, all of this stuff. This is our goodbye lunch. And he said, what do you mean goodbye? I said, I'm resigning, and I'm moving to Seattle. And he said, what the heck for? It's old, it rains a lot, old buildings, and I'm in restoration.
So it's match made in heaven.
And I love food, and Seattle has great food choices. He said, no. He said, that's a stupid idea. This is where you are. This is where your reputation is. He says, what do you need to stay here? And I laughed and said, I need money to start my own company. He said, okay.
Oh.
I said, what do you mean, okay? He said, okay. How long do you need it for? I said, well, I need a few years to buy you out. He's like, you don't have to buy me out. I'll just give it to you once you're done. No, we're not doing that. It's funny because we hired an attorney to help us do the contract. The attorney fired himself because he says, you guys are screwed up. He wants to give it away and you want to pay for it. It's usually the other way. What am I here for? So sounds
like you needed a therapist, not an attorney.
Exactly. So he terminates himself and we go to work. And 3 years fast forward, which was 2018, I come to him and say, hey, I've saved up enough credits and enough equity. I want to do that transaction. So I bought him out.
Cool.
So it was actually an amazing story because the Business Journal did it because it was a handshake deal. We had no lawyers, no paperwork, anything. And that was another way that I realized how rigid the system is.
Right.
2018, I'm sitting at Wells Fargo saying I need money to buy him out. They said, cool. Do you have operating agreement? No. Do you have an MOU? No. Do you have a purchase agreement? No. And they looked at us and said, we can't help you. I said, why not? Me and him are in agreement on the price.
Yeah.
He's here. I'm here. What's the problem? The guy rotates the monitor and says, you see right here where I have to upload a document? If I don't upload, I can't hit next. And it was a realization that the system was so rigid and so removed that it couldn't, and it didn't know how to operate.
Couldn't handle an anomaly like you and Tom.
Right.
Yeah.
Go back to the history of when banks started. The farmers did a handshake deal. I grew the crop, I'll pay you back. So that was another realization of how it is, which is part of the reason why Restoration HQ exists. Its desire is to get rid of that rigidness, to get rid of that system and become your partner. Not your vendor, but your partner. Partnerships have problems. Partnerships have communication. Partnerships have victories. They have so many layers that go into it. Vendors rarely do. Vendors tend to be disposable. Partners are not. We don't exploit your weakness. You don't exploit ours. We communicate. A vendor, you'd be like, oh, you screwed up. COI, I'm filing a claim. Bye. So it's been the secret to our recipe. It's been the most difficult.
Yeah, the biggest challenge, but the biggest reward.
And expensive.
Yeah.
Because you have to hire employees that think like that too.
Okay, so let's go down a number of channels now that you set the table, quote unquote. So first of all, for the audience sake, Restoration HQ, was that the name that you started then?
Yeah, it was in the kitchen. I was sitting there. I was trying to figure out, what do you name it, right?
Right.
And those of you who have ever done it, it's difficult. It's like naming a child, right? It's stuck to it. So I'm sitting going like, what colors? How am I going to abbreviate? Humans are lazy. What will be the acronym for it? So what I came to mind is HQ, headquarters. Everybody remembers that. If I add a letter in front of it, it makes it easy. So Restoration HQ, RHQ is abbreviated.
Then, okay, so, and then how many years have you formally been in business then?
September 2nd will be 9 years.
9 years, perfect. Let's go down to that partnership vendor thing, because you really hit a nail on the head, and I'm sure the audience will love this. Share some stories or like what goes in behind the scenes, because, for instance, for the audience sake, just before we got on, Sergei and I were talking about how we were talking to Layla about predictive index versus culture index and those kind of things, which we could probably spend an hour just talking about on that, which means I can tell you that Sergei has what it takes to be an entrepreneur and a leader. And, we were talking about, we'll give a shout out to Michael and his team at Next Level Growth, a wonderful group of people in town here that I know there's a lot of people that use him or use their firm. So with all those kind of data points surrounding it, tell us how you dove in and wanted to be a different company. Use the partnership versus vendor thing, and then let's see where we'll toss the salad, so to speak.
I guess I'll go back to that lunch is kind of where it started.
Okay.
That was probably my first partnership, I guess you would say, a handshake partnership.
You mean with
right?
Tom?
With Tom, correct.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, is Tom still in your life?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
We went from vendor, subcontractor, to friend, to business relationship, to family.
Cool.
So we've morphed. He's do you know what a shovel buddy is?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's mine, I'm his.
All right.
Okay.
Remember that, shovel buddy, Sean.
Get a big shovel. So that was a first realization to me that the value of a partnership, how it means, right? Yes, we could have got lawyers. Yes, we could have done that. But we shook hands.
Right.
And we made a promise. And we stuck to it. So when I put in my resignation, I had all these weeks of vacation, everything saved up. So what I did is I took that time and I went to all my customers. And I said, what are your pain points? Restoration is expensive. We have no idea what you're doing. We have no idea how much equipment you're putting in, why. Do you need 20 fans? Do you need 10 fans? We don't know. So what I heard from all of them is that they didn't understand it. They felt taken advantage of. They felt at the mercy, no different than sometimes we may feel when an ambulance shows up at our house.
Okay.
IVs, shots, oxygen, all these things. We don't know, and afterwards, $30,000 bill.
Right.
So I said, okay, how do I overcome that? Well, first thing's transparency.
So when you were, okay, let me interrupt you. So when you were going through this discovery phase, if you want to call it that, again, for the audience sake, was that more commercial or residential?
Commercial.
Just commercial at the time.
In 08, we already dropped residential.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to give them a sense of what we were talking about. Okay.
Yeah, we dropped residential because it was just too much risk.
Okay.
And honestly, I felt dirty working for insurance companies.
Got it. We'll get into that.
Yeah, commercial, I didn't have to.
Okay, so now you're in this discovery phase with your clients. Keep going.
So I found out what they were lacking is a partner.
Okay.
They were lacking a teammate, somebody they can ask questions to, somebody who was a nickel diming them. So I said, okay, how do I build a business that can achieve that without going broke? Because that's really the recipe to it, right? They want some things given to them without being nickel diming. Well, it means I got to give some free things.
Right.
So efficiencies, transparency, optimization, process, procedures. But the last key is the humans that we hire. So that's what you're talking about culture index is it doesn't matter what system you have. If you have a human that always has to be overseen, like micromanaged, they're only going to do great when you're there. When you're not, systems falls apart. Yeah. So it was a recipe. It was a combination of all of those different ingredients that I realized was missing. So I set out to achieve that. First couple of years was easy because I was a chef. In the kitchen, I was a chef. I was taking care of it, right?
You had everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then it became more complex as we got more people involved and the procedures, which is why Michael came in, as me and you were talking about, is that we were lacking those process and procedures. The same reason why I joined the EO is to learn those process procedures.
Let's take a little tangent there.
Of course.
Because there's lots of people out there that hear guys like you
Acronyms.
and I talk about. No. They hear guys and gals like me, you, and other guests that are on the show talk about how we've taken our own companies where, like, I'll go on the record saying I realized my weak spots. I realized I couldn't be an effective CEO if I didn't get out of the way of more talented people. So whether it's Michael or those kinds of companies that do that, and EO, which like I'm in Vistage, you're in EO, same thing. If you're not around other people where you're disclosing and divulging your not only your secrets, but your weaknesses, your strengths, and be willing to share both in the trials and tribulations, you're gonna stagnate. Is that fair?
1,000%.
So how did you, again, just to give your testimony to this, what were the indicators for you that you realized you needed help? Because at this time you were in a growth phase, I assume.
I was.
When you reached out to Michael and EO and those things, no.
So we've been in the growth stage every year, right? Yeah. So I was constantly in it. I think, as you mentioned, I started to realize I may not be enough.
There you go.
And I was okay with that.
Right.
So then I needed to find what will be that. But I gave myself the lie of, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to try this. I don't have time for this, right? The funny story about that, Tom, the Tom we're talking about, actually set me up on a blind date with Michael and didn't tell me. It was a bait and switch. Tom said, let's go have dinner.
So he knew him, though?
He was already working with him.
Got it.
He said, let's go have dinner.
So he was your ambassador of Quan.
I show up. Tom orders a cocktail, says, I'm going to go to the restroom. Comes back, says, the bill's paid. I'm out. Bye. And left me and Michael there. That lasted about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Speaking to Michael, I exposed all my fears. Yeah. I'm afraid that you're going to show me weaknesses in my business and I'm going to lose half of my team. I'm afraid that you're going to show weaknesses in me and I may not be enough and I don't know if I can face it any further. Pride, everything kicked in. And I laid it all out. He was a stranger. What do I got to lose? You're absolutely right. We have to be okay with not being everything. So Michael helped show that to me. He helped show me that what I thought I was great at, I was okay at. And the things that I didn't want to do, I actually was better at, so I should stick to doing that. Yeah. It helped show that. Was it easy?
No. It's a ball. We can say it. You kicked him the balls pretty hard.
And then he came back and did it again next day.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it, right? But he forced me to read. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest books I read that I love is Good to Great.
Jim Collins, yeah.
Correct. And it starts off with that Michael Jordan example.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks of Jordan as being the best player. He had coaches for everything. He had financial coaches. He had dietitian coaches. He had all of these things, but he still got the credit. So why was I so ego-driven that I wanted to do everything I did? Why was I so... I rejected coaches. In fact, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but I sometimes thought people were weaker if they had coaches. because guess what? I was raised in Russia. You don't cry. Put some dirt in it. You're tough. Don't show emotions. Don't have any feelings. Don't have any fears. Bottle it up inside. And if that bothers you, go home and drink. Right? That was the recipe.
I love it the Russian way.
Yeah. If that doesn't work, put some more vodka on it. Right? It works out. So
Sean, don't try that at home.
Yeah. So I started getting open to that, and then EO. Scott Morrison was my CPA.
Oh, shout out to Scott.
Yep. Scott was my CPA since day one, and people would laugh at me and saying, "Why do you have this massive CPA? You're a little tiny company." Every year for tax planning, he said, "When are you joining the EO? When are you joining the EO?" And honestly, the thing that pushed me over is we were doing a job. Who is now a good friend of mine, Chad Nickel. It was at his apartment, and I remember this guy rolling in the middle of the day with some new guns he bought, putting away his smoothies. I'm like, "What do you do?" He's like, "I own a pool company." And I'm thinking, okay, Chad, you're not cleaning pools, right? Like, what's going on? And he said, "Oh, well, I'm an EO, and this is what helped me." So I said, fine. So I went back to Scott, said, "Scott, I'm willing to take that chance. Can you give me that recommendation?" He did. So I joined the EO. Funny story is Chad, 6 months later, was on the board as part of the committee deciding if I would get in it or not.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
So for the record, did he give you an approval vote, or did he give you a denial vote?
He gave me approval. There was a question that
I'm
he
sure
was
there was
known.
a caveat to that.
Well, there was
Hey, Sergei.
there was a question that he always asked everybody, and this is an interesting thing that really I remember. So there's 12 people, or 10 people, whatever was on the panel. Everybody's asking questions. Why are you going here instead of Vistage or this, or what do you do in your free time? And he looks at me and goes, "When was the last time you cried?" What I found out later is if you said, "I don't know, I don't cry," all that was a vote for no. Why? Because if you're not connected with your emotions, if you're not honest and open about it, how will you be in a room of other people sharing your 5% if you're not able to connect with it?
It's well stated.
And let me tell you, I have cried more in the last couple of years than I've done my whole life.
But yeah.
Tears of joy.
Yeah.
Tears of panic. All of that.
But in a group, but again, back to in a group that understands all of it.
They're in it. They're living it. Yeah. They're having the same problems.
You're not there on the ship by yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I was lucky enough to get into a forum that is very high performing. And they drove me. And for the first year, I thought I was going to quit 6 times. I'm like, I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't speak their language. I'm just some young kid. What am I going to do? And in my forum was also Chris Ronzio from Traniel. Yeah. So I had him in there, and I'm looking at this guy, and his company is growing. He's intelligent. He's disciplined. And I look at myself, I'm just some Russian immigrant kid. What am I doing? I barely graduated high school. But nevertheless, here we are.
Let's spin it. Let's go down your core business, restoration. Defunk and demystify that industry for everyone that's listening, because for those of you that before we got on the air, I told Sergei, I said, listen, probably 90% of the population out there has this stereotype of restoration companies, that their inclusion with the insurance companies, it's all one big racket. And we were laughing because I've been involved in the industry before. But I want to let you hear it and see it through his voice and his mannerisms. But yeah, just run with it.
I would probably tell you this to all the listeners.
Yeah.
I agree with 90% of the negative about our industry.
Okay.
Most are connected to the insurance company. Most are crooks. Most don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
Most don't want to invest in it. All they got sold on is this dream, this high net profit business. You spin this equipment. It's a necessity, and you can make lots and lots of money. You can see this on advertising. Can your restoration business handle more? 70% gross margins for this franchise business. Yeah. All of these things, they spin it. My industry is full of that. It absolutely is. Because
and truth be told, a lot of our respective industries have some degree of that.
A little bit harder with electrician, right? Because if you paid them to put a switch in, there's a switch there when you're done.
True.
With us, you call and we're like, that wall is wet, and you touch it, you're like, it feels dry.
Yeah.
But my meter said it's wet. And you're like, okay, but it feels dry, right? Yeah. So it's a little bit different of exchange. But here's why. Yep. Companies set out to go after the insurance companies. And this is the easiest way for you to look at it. If you look at a restoration company and they say, insurance company's preferred vendor, on preferred list, if State Farm or American Family, whoever the insurance company says, use our preferred vendor, it's no different when you get in a car accident.
Right.
They're not preferred because they're going to take care of you the best. They're preferred because insurance company likes them the best. Who has ever had a great claim when they said, I love my insurance company. They did everything I wanted them to do, right? We forget that. So what I decided is Restoration HQ does not work with any insurance companies. It's not on any preferred list. It doesn't get any single call from an insurance company. I get it from my client, which means I eat what I kill. If I upset a property management company who's 2 million square feet, I lost it all. I might not get it for years. So I surrendered the hand that feeds me and bet on myself that I can go out there and continue to get it and maintain it. If your restoration vendor is not able to do that, there's already conflict of interest. They're not loyal to you. In regards to not knowing what they're doing, do you remember there's this old joke when they said a CEO and CFO were talking? Do you know where I'm going with this one?
Keep going, though.
And CFO goes, man, we're going to put all this money into these people. What if we educate them and then they leave? And the CEO said, what if we don't and they stay?
Yeah.
So I remember that because I took that.
Yeah.
I paid for my guys to get trained. They understand physics. They go into it. It cost me $5,000-$6,000 a person to do it. Oh, yeah. And they may be gone in 6 months, 8 months. But what if they stay? Yeah. Right? That kind of thing. So we invest into it. So we actually use physics. One of the things I hate the most is people like, oh, restoration companies come in. You guys are always cutting the walls. Why? I'm a restoration company, not a demo company. Well, it's because when you're in doubt, you cut it out. That's the saying they have at school.
When you're in doubt, you cut it. I haven't heard that one.
You can't grow mold if you cut the wet drywall out, right? Everything is dry. It's good to go.
Yeah.
They also have a construction division that they need to feed.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't have that. So my industry is full of a lot of crooks. Now, not the whole valley.
No,
I would tell you 4 to 5 companies besides us that also do really good work. There's 400 plus restoration companies in town. Because if you got a vacuum and a blower, correct, you're a restoration company. If you want to pay 20% royalty to the greens or the yellows or the blues or whatever rainbow colors that they have for these franchises, congratulations, you're a restoration company.
Yeah.
So Restoration HQ is commercial only. No insurance work. We don't work for homeowners. If you're a client of ours or a friend of ours and you call a job in, we either do it for free or we don't do it at all. That's our policy. Because as you know, if you do things for friends, no good deed ever goes unpunished.
There you go. What, so on that, with that business model then, how have you had to stay laser focused or different than the rest of the industry then?
It's an everyday commitment from everybody in the leadership team. I'll give you an example. Before coming here, I actually was in a meeting that I did not like.
Okay.
Our marketing vertical development manager that we talked about was bringing back some of the complaints that we've heard of some few projects. Everybody in the leadership team was involved to hear that. We take it seriously. So it's not, we don't sweep it under the rug. We acknowledge it. Yep, there was a mistake there. How do we fix it? What do we do? That has probably been a difficult step. You know, looking in the mirror and realizing that you have work to do. Yeah. You have more to be done. And I think the whole leadership team is okay with that. They're open to that. So that's been one of the ways that we stay laser focused. Education obviously is a big step about it. Education 2 ways, internal and external.
What's the external?
Customers.
Got it.
Because remember, insurance companies tend to scare you too. A lot of people don't understand the policy, their own, and they think that they have to go with what the insurance company says, even though it hurts their business. And I have so many customers say, I wanted to use you, but they said I had to use their preferred vendor. But you don't have to. They go, but what if they don't cover my claim? So they're at the mercy of it. Yeah. Anybody who likes to read books, there's a great book called Delay, Deny, Defend. 3 steps that insurance companies do. specific stories and how they operate. Insurance companies learn that their adjusters are not there to make you whole. They're a profit-making center.
There's no doubt about that.
A million claims, you save $1, you got $1 million, your bottom line. Simple math, right?
Yeah.
So the laser focus comes in as external, internal. It comes in with how we address problems. It talks about the people we hire. We talked about culture index. I don't care just because you have a heartbeat and you say I can show up. If you don't fit what we're looking for, we don't hire. And we're so disciplined that we won't even look at your resume or interview you until the culture index has been taken. We looked at it, and it aligns with who we are as an organization. It's almost like it's a living creature. It's got its own habits. It's got what it likes. It attracts certain things.
Yeah.
It rejects it. So you have to think of it as such, and you have to respect it as such. Beyond that, it's the same things that you probably have to deal with, right? It's managing cash flow. It's taking care of the customer but not bleeding dry. It's just a lot of different layers that go into it. But I think those are the most important ones. And if you can get those dialed in pretty well in the beginning, the rest tends to fall into place.
What challenges have you seen rise currently, or what do you see? Like, what do you guys talk about internally that's coming in the next year or two, specific to your organization and your industry?
My opinion is that 2020 event was a very damaging situation in many different ways.
Do tell.
How it applies to us is, I'll give you this example before I explain it. So you're driving home 2 o'clock in the morning, you forgot to put gas and you run out of gas. You call AAA, some guy shows up, he fills you up, you're back on the road.
Right.
Are you ecstatic about that? No, they did what your membership said they were going to do. But your friend John lived down the street. And you call John, he shows up quicker. And you try to give him $20 for gas. And he's going to be like, come on, man, we haven't seen each other well. Let's go get lunch. You're going to thank him the next day. You're going to feel a certain way, right? So there was this human connection and bond that existed. What we do for a living heavily depended on that. You called us in the case of emergency. We took care of you. We went above and beyond. We were open and trusting. The 2020 event and this whole isolation and separation has created a wedge between that. People don't value relationships the same way. And that's difficult for me. It's difficult because I may have a customer I've served for 10 years, never did anything wrong, but they lost that connection to us.
Yeah.
Now we find ourselves that we are having to go almost to square one, like if we never met before, the way we're bidding. Or they say, well, I'm going to take 3 vendors. I said, well, why? Did we ever not take care of you? Well, they stopped by too, so I don't want to be mean to them, right? There's just these weird things that happen that this human bond and connection started to dissolve more. And the reason I use 2020 as a marker is because that was a big shift then. When everybody went home, when buildings went empty and all of those things, we saw a big uptick in business because of fear.
Oh.
Right? Clean my building, sanitize them. People were making up all kinds of juice, right? Snake oil was sold everywhere.
Yes, it was.
And nanos and this, and gold in this, and platinum and this. Everything was out there, right? And I saw myself trying to educate people saying, that's not going to work. You don't need that. And they latched onto that idea, and it started that divide. And I don't think we've bounced back yet. People are overworked, underpaid still. So unfortunately, human nature is like, oh, you're going to give me a better dinner, I'll go with you instead. It's been a very significant marker. So what we're having difficulty with is maintaining relationships.
Okay.
They don't interact the same way. They don't communicate the same way. They're a little bit more closed offish. They go to work, do their job, clock out, they go home. Before, you used to be able to grab happy hours with them, learn about little Johnny playing soccer, right? Those kind of things. It's not happening as much. It's unfortunate.
What do you obviously, with what you're kind of, like you said, the American dream, I wouldn't say rags to riches story, but how we've mentioned some names and organizations that have helped you on the that mentoring type role. How then are you now taking it and paying it forward in your new role and your new success? What does mentoring mean for you, Sergei?
Oh, it's evolved a few times.
Okay.
Currently, the people on my team have somewhat similar backgrounds.
Okay.
My operations manager, we went to high school together.
Oh.
He was living on the couch, all of that. Before he started working for me, I've helped him get his life together, not just by paying him for the job he does, but being his friend and helping other and making decisions. And now he's got a house, he's got kids, he's got a beautiful family. Love that. My controller came from a very abusive environment where the way that people talked to her as far as the CEO is what she was required to do. So I was helping rewrite that. Now she's happier. She's more extroverted, more outgoing. Those are the most easiest of my closest team. And beyond that, we help the community. I have this goal is that if I find somebody who has a similar story as me when Tom found me, Tom made me promise him that I will do something about it. So I'm keeping my eyes open by going to these different things. Next year, I actually want to become a mentor in the EO and help mentor some people on the accelerator because those are upcoming business owners and all of those.
There you go.
So I'm trying to do different ways. But to be honest with you, I help more with animals because I like animals more than humans sometimes, specifically dogs. I'm allergic to cats, so there's that. But
Sean, you can relate.
I try to find opportunities to help out. Whether it's a technician who is going on vacation with his family, is just not a high paying, trying to help him out there to make sure he's got a good family and that his kid's got a good father, right? I don't know if that's like something that is worth putting a medal around, but it chips away. It's a start.
What I think I got away from that. It's not that I skipped over, but coming back to it, kind of in that same role. And maybe I'm overstating this, but you kind of feel like you're an outlier in the total restoration space. But yeah, you've proven through math that you're part of a smaller sector of the people in the industry that are doing it for the right or the holistic or whatever reasons, call it what you will. On the national scale, are you very involved in the different organizations? Because I believe you are. And what does that translate to? I mean, okay, you are in E&O, you're working with Michael, but then at the national scale or the regional scale, you being kind of this, like I said, anomaly outlier in the restoration space, how has that exposure then helped you and allowed you to do things at that level to then bring those things back to your organization or even to our community here?
The first answer to that is it's interesting because most people in the restoration world, anytime I said I'm commercial only, all of that, kind of got mad at me for that. I've heard comments like, oh, you just skimmed the cream of the crop, must be nice, right? Or some of these schools and classes I went to, they're like, oh, well, don't listen to him because he's commercial only. And I'm like, why am I being alienated for that? Why wouldn't you want to take that?
Right.
So I had to expand beyond my industry to learn a little bit more about my industry in a way, right? So RIA is great. That's a restoration industry that's amazing. They have a lot of education. They're fighting for these things. In fact, they protect restoration companies and against insurance companies. So that's been great.
Oh.
So obviously brought back. But I honestly would say that my biggest schooling and most things I have acquired has been through EO. By going to different states, by being in different forums, by doing all these different events where they bring in a lot of different speakers. It's not just about business. Sometimes it's about us, humans. We have to get our head right to lead an organization. And if we have these insecurities, if we have inability to face our own demons, how are we going to lead an organization? So I joined EO thinking, I'm going to get this book of business, all these referrals, and this is going to be great, and I'm going to make millions. I'm going to have a jet like everybody else. I still don't have a jet. But I learned a lot about me.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about me and how I present myself to others.
So would you just say that your EQ has gone up considerably?
I would like to say that. Yeah. And I bring it back. Every time I come back with something cool, like, Peter Diamandis came in and did a presentation, right? And it was AI.
Did you read his book, Bold?
I have not.
Oh,
I have not. I have it, but I have not. And
that one will blow you away.
Okay.
I've promoted that one over the last few months because I don't get moved very much, but that book was phenomenal.
So they had him speak. It was EO YPO event, and it was like March. And I got bit by the AI bug. So I brought it back, and I had a meeting with my leadership team. And I taught them and educated them on it. Then I gave them tasks. And now we're super deep in it, right? So I think that's how I bring back to my team is expanding the knowledge beyond just the restoration part of it. Because at the end of the day, we're sucking up water and sending up blowers, right? Like there's only so much I can tell them about the newest fan or the lower amperage. But to help them lead their teams, to help them grow as individuals, to help them grow as their family members, whether they're a brother or sister, and show up better in that regard, I think is where I play a bigger role in their life. At least if they're listening, please say yes.
Yeah, no, well stated. I think I forgot to ask an obvious question. Are you guys only in Arizona?
Currently.
Okay,
Currently.
But you are going to be expanding?
Yes, we're Phoenix and Tucson right now. Tucson opened up July 5th of last year. It was a market that we were kind of asked to join. We have a lot of customers there that needed presence. But we did it, I think, respectfully.
Yeah.
We took about 6 months before we actually opened there. We went time. We learned about Tucson. We learned about their culture, about their people. And we found a way to complement that rather than to give us your paychecks.
Yeah. But will you be going to other states?
Selfishly, I would like to go to Texas next
Yeah.
because I would like to get a ranch in Texas so my son can do outdoorsy stuff. So selfishly,
There's no shame in that.
that's where I think will be the next one. But we don't know what state yet. I don't know. We have played with the idea of franchising because I thought that would be the vehicle to help the most people the fastest. The more layers are pulled back, I realized that I still have that vehicle. I think franchise may not be it. I think a private chain would be a little bit better because I can still hire people. I can still have different locations. I can still give somebody an opportunity to build the life that I was able to, that maybe the system passed them over because on paper they didn't look perfect. Like my mother's situation, right? We talked about that car. So yes, we are going to different states. We don't know what state yet.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
What? Let's go down the entrepreneurial line just for a little bit. What? I don't know how to. I think for me, maybe I should just ask this open-ended and then let you just kind of take it. Like, what did you say before? Something about entrepreneurship is. Oh yeah, entrepreneurship is different than what
Business ownership.
Business ownership. Give me your definition and your rationale behind that. I mean, it doesn't have to be literal, but just, something that the audience can relate to.
Boy, I'm giving a lot of shout outs to EO because I'm going to say it again. So with EO is where I really was able to discover that, right?
Okay.
First thing I learned is that success can be accidental.
And many times so.
Yes.
Yes.
So we often refer to like a rocket ship, right? I say there's a guy who builds a rocket ship, and then there's a drunk guy who stumbles in front of it when it takes off. Both will make it to space. Only one of them is an astronaut, right? So business is kind of the same way. You may have fallen into something like the 2020 event. You may have had a product that's spiked.
Just because of that.
Right.
That's luck.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not entrepreneurship.
Right.
So business ownership is a job. I own my business. I go to work. This is what I do. Entrepreneurship forces you to expand your mind beyond that. It helps you look at things that are not always revenue generating today, but are long term. It's not thinking like a spreadsheet company where I give you $1, I need $1.30 back. I don't care what that means. I don't care if I fire you and your kids can't eat, right? Like that's a whole different situation.
Right.
I know a lot of people who are business owners and they make good money and they're successful, but they have nothing to sell. They are the business.
Yeah.
Whether, people in real estate, I understand, right? Real estate agents are stuck. It's their name. But I know a lot of business owners that if they were to drop dead tomorrow, so would their business. Mm-hmm. That's business ownership. Entrepreneurship is it doesn't need me. I would venture out to guess if me and you do not come back to our office for the next week, we have people in place that will continue to operate.
Well, hopefully so, yeah.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
That's why I take vacations during the summers to test them to see how well they do. But they are two different things. And unfortunately, the media has really put this bragging rights on the word entrepreneurship, right? Yeah. Everybody thinks that if they're...
It's become a little bit too cliche.
It is.
Yeah.
They have a YouTube channel, they're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
maybe an influencer at best, but even then, right?
Well, I'll even look at the name of EO.
Correct. And some people have got in that are business owners because they met the criteria, right? And then 3 years later, they're dropping out because they no longer meet it.
Yeah.
So it's two different things. And anybody who's entrepreneur, I think, can say they know the difference. And I don't think anybody who's a business owner can say the difference. I think there's a level such. And I was a business owner at first. For the first 3 years of my business, I was just that.
Been there, done that as well.
Right. So I think it's a transitional step, right? You have to be a business owner first, and then you have to become an entrepreneur.
What? Well, so on that one, Sergei, what can you remember? Was there an event, a time period where you cognitively could tell the difference between going from one to the other?
When I started to see the results in other people without my direct intervention, but them executing on concepts and things I brought back.
Okay.
Meaning I didn't tell a guy to go cut that drywall and he cutting it because I told him. But for them to start understanding, they start to feel it, they start to see it. And then I started to understand that means I'm communicating the message of this organization. They're buying into the messaging of it and the persona of it. And they're adapting as their own, right? A guy at McDonald's flipping burgers doesn't care where the beef came from, doesn't care what it looks like, he slaps it on, right? A guy who is an owner of that restaurant does.
Right.
And each one of my employees started to exhibit some of these signs where it was protecting it. You know, when they say, well, the way I run my truck, you took ownership of it, right? You connected to it. This is no longer a job. Therefore, I started to realize that I went from being a boss to being a leader. And that excited me. And then I went on that journey further and further to learn more about what entrepreneurship meant.
Now, were you always... I think you did a great job of explaining that, and I think it's very relatable for the audience. At the same token, though, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, during that same kind of transition or journey here at that point, was that when you understood your own cultural index as well? And I know we've overused that word, but I mean, at the same token, though, I heard it, like I saw it in your body language just sitting here across from you. That's when you understood your cultural piece too.
I did.
Right?
I did. I also was able to see I'm data driven, right? Obviously told you science and math. Data on me that I was able to understand and was able to accept.
Yeah. Accept
was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
You know, honestly.
Anyway, a lot of people can understand it, but it's not everyone can accept it.
So this is going to be my vulnerability moment.
Okay.
There was a couple times where I almost listed the business for sale. A fear of failure. Simply that I figured if I sell it, I can never fail. Right? Because nobody can say, oh, it failed. And it was my insecurities and all of those things. And it was not letting them take over and acknowledging that my thoughts are having this and looking for solutions and being okay to sit across from somebody and say, you're not qualified to do this. Michael said this to me. He said this to me in the beginning when we started. He looked at me, he says, I don't work for you. I said, I signed your check. He says, no, I work for the organization. And if you're not fit to do your job, I will recommend that you get fired. You can still own this, but you don't get to be the CEO.
It's funny you said that because I remember talking to other businesses that have hired Michael, and that was a repeatable, what am I trying to say? Kind of event and transaction that came out of some very successful entrepreneurs and business owners.
After you strike a pretty big check and you hand it to him, that's what he followed with. And I remember, to be honest, I talked to him, we laughed about it. I left kind of angry.
Yeah, well,
who the heck does he think he is? I'm paying all this money. He thinks he's going to this.
But guess what? He was right.
And he said on a Friday. So I chewed on it for 2 days.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll listen to this. But I came back and said, no, he's right.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. Nobody's above this organization. I hate when entrepreneurs or business owners, probably should call them business owners, well, it's my business. I do as I say, not as I do. It's like parents, right? As they're sitting there drinking every night, telling the kid, don't drink.
Yeah.
We will raise our kids to be like us, no matter what we tell them. And our employees will take on those habits regardless of what we tell them.
Yeah.
So be the person you want them to be.
So what do you do for fun?
I am obsessed with my kid. I have waited till older to have my son.
Okay.
I had one. He's an elf. My partner wanted multiple.
Yeah.
I should say wife, but we're not officially married. But yeah,
it's all good.
She wanted multiple. She had one. She's like, no more. So he's 3.5 right now. He speaks 3 languages. He's been racing BMX since he's been about 1.5.
Wow.
He's high functioning. He's consumes us. Our weekends are, what are we going to do to entertain him? Those of you who are new parents, if you think getting him a trampoline because it's going to wear him out, do not. He will get stronger and he will need a bigger trampoline. It does not wear them out. So my son, number one, I want to invest in him.
Nice.
I want to educate him. I want to challenge him. I get a little criticism when I say it's my job to teach him not only happiness, but disappointment.
Yeah.
He needs to know what it feels like so he can avoid it.
Is that the Russian in you?
Are we going to give Mother Russia the credit for that one?
Well, no, because I'm asking it
think
sincerely because I see that, and I'm stereotyping right now. It's like those people and those cultures and nationalities where that's still kind of more the norm than forget. I'm not going to be politically correct here. The helicopter parenting and all that other stuff. It's like, hold it, you even said it. The stereotype of the Russian, hey, we're the badasses, no one's going to mess with it. It's like, toughen up, pour some more vodka on it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some to it, but
right.
I think it's a response even with the employees, right?
True.
We let them make mistakes. So I have this saying, you go to college. Let's make really easy numbers. You pay $20,000 a year, you take 4 years, that's $80,000. You paid $80,000 to learn what mistakes look like and how to avoid them. I, not going to college, pay that as I go along.
True.
$3,000 mistake, oh, don't do that again, right? Kind of situation. So we acquire knowledge. It's the first time it's a learning lesson. Second time it's a mistake because you consciously made the same thing again. So with my son, the way I do this is if I see him doing something dangerous, but he's being cautious about it, I'm going to let him. Even though it means that he may fall, he may hurt himself, right? He needs to learn those boundaries. So I stay away from it. Like when he started racing BMX, he got really comfortable and he was doing the wobbles on the steering wheel. And I remember telling my wife, he's going to fall, he's going to hurt his knee, and it's going to hurt and he's going to cry. Mm-hmm. Let him.
Yep.
He's only done that once. And then he's like, I'm not doing that no more, right?
Right.
So I let him learn that. That's pain, right? That's frustration. Does it pull in my heartstrings? Absolutely. There's been times where I've punished him, stood on the other side of the door crying myself while he's crying in there, right? I still love the kid. It's just, it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Russia, maybe it's parenting, maybe it's being an employer for so long.
I think it's all of it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's a combo.
Hey, go ahead.
Sorry. The other thing is outdoors.
Yeah.
We are dunes. We're off-roaders. We got side-by-sides. We go with the rail.
Fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of business done. I'm not good at golf. I am.
So are you Glamis junkie then, or what?
I wouldn't say junkie, but I enjoy.
You're part of that Glamis
So we'll
crowd.
be there for Halloween, that kind of thing. He's into that as well. He's into cars and all of that. But I'm terrible at golf. Like terrible to the point when I go to play around, I'll pick up like 12 balls. And if I come home with one, I'm doing great. And every time the clubhouse are like, oh, stocking up. I'm like, nah, that's just for today. So golf is not my thing, but engines is my thing. So side-by-sides and sand rails.
All right. So in the wrap-up phase here, you were talking about learning.
Yes.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what your opinion is, what your feelings are, how your business is being affected by AI or any of the emerging technologies that everyone's using. I know we spoke offline a little bit about it, but share with the audience any insights you have as that entrepreneur or business owner in your space.
I think AI is like the internet coming around again, right? People will fear it because they don't understand it. Mm-hmm. People will add titles or labels to it. Oh, it's here to replace humans, or it's this, or it's going to take over the world. I love that one, right? If you've seen iRobot, I was like, yes, we've all seen iRobot, right? But there's a lot of other movies we've seen and nobody takes those concepts for real, like, either government corruption or politicals or whatever the case is, right? But I believe AI is a tool, no different than email. When email first came around, there was a lot of CEOs that still had people print out their emails for them. And they would read them on paper, right? Because they were resistant of it. I'm not doing this digital thing. I'm this and all of that. I think we're seeing that again right now. What's happening with AI is that people are resisting it because they don't understand it. Fairly so. I didn't either. I still don't. But it became so popular so fast, right? It seems like overnight AI showed up everywhere. ChatGPT, like you saw it everywhere. So people are like, well, I'm going to resist it. I'm sorry, but if you had Netflix for the last 3, 4, 5 years, you've been using AI.
Yeah.
When it's recommending a show to watch, that's AI. If you have a vacuum at home, the Roomba, whatever it is, that's AI, right? Our predictive on our phones, it's all AI.
Yeah.
So learn how to use it. Learn how to become better at it. So we have committed to the point where every 2 weeks, because obviously we're in somewhat EOS system, we have our L10 meetings.
Yep, there you go.
Every week, each person in leadership must spend 1 hour a week learning about AI and how to become better at it, whatever pertains to them. So anybody who's listening, the best place to start is there is an AIforthat.com. Last time I checked, there was 6,400 different AIs.
Yeah.
So for your OnlyFans account that you have there, right, you can have somebody reply for you.
I love it.
But the reality is there's a lot of different tools to help you. If you're in the finance space, there's things that can help you analyze a report. Does it make the decisions for you?
No.
Not now. But it'll point out the markers or the triggers. Marketing space. How many people don't know their own brand voice?
A lot.
AI can help you identify it. We did that. Our AI came back and said, you guys are informative, not entertaining. You're all of these
We do the
different
same thing.
Right.
And I was humbled by it, and now I can't get enough of it.
I can't either. It's an
Yeah,
addiction.
but like you said though, I use it as a tool, or we use it as a tool, I should say. And we, again, our organization, we've kind of just embraced it too. It's not a fear factor at all. It's like, oh, well, this is cool.
Right.
We're just getting it faster, better. It's saving us time, being more efficient, more connectivity.
One of my marketing members, when she learned about this, she literally looked at me and said, what do you need me for? Well, it's such a silly question. I gave her a silly answer. Well, who's going to copy and paste the answers, right? She has then accepted and realized that.
I'm going to use that copy and paste coordinator.
Correct. So now there's one of her doing work of 5.
Right.
And that's when she's realized, and now she's become addicted to it. And I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to promote, but in September, I'm looking to launch a apparel company called Tradewear. Apparel company is going to be built with AI mostly.
Nice.
So graphic designing, creating those different things. We're testing it to see how is it able to do that. Can it help you with the business? I'm sure there's a lot of business that can benefit from that. I know service-based companies having chat bots and communicating with your customers to get some of their prequel stuff out of the way is ideal for that. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. The chatbot stuff. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, but I have just the advancement in that chatbot. It's kind of cool because sometimes you feel like, oh, this isn't a chatbot. There's actually a human there. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Yep. So whenever somebody drops into your DM on the social media, there's probably a bot going on there too. But it's necessary. And the thing that I'll say about AI, if you're not learning about it right now, regardless if you need to use it or not, you are doing yourself a disservice and you will regret that later.
And your team.
Correct.
If you're in a leadership management position.
Correct.
Agreed.
But even as a low-level employee, if you're not learning that and you're just saying, I don't understand it, I don't want to, you're going to be so far behind.
You're back to your not your speech, but your context and the Internet of Things prior. Sergei, just one last thing before we wrap it up. Any advice or words of wisdom you'd like to give to the audience through your own trials and tribulations?
Oh, man. I don't know if I'm qualified for that.
Just give a shout out on if there's anything.
I think as cheesy it is, and I'll take the risk of that, going back to the comment about the 2020s, I think what I would say is just be a good human. I miss that. I miss the relationships. I'm relationship driven. I trust people. I like people, and I really don't like not being that person. So, I mean, I think we gave them enough nuggets about where they can go to get more information, all that. So I'm not going to try to be too motivational on that one.
Well, thanks for coming on again today. Just ecstatic to have you on. Thank you for giving insight not only into the restoration business, specifically yours, but kind of the industry, and then more importantly, really appreciate you being exposed to, what you've gone through for entrepreneurship, leadership, working with the likes of Michael. We mentioned his name 100 times here. EO, we're going to give him a bunch of shout outs there. I know we've had Rami on before. I think he's in your group. And like I said, what was it? It's not a small world. It's a large village. Large village. Well, I think we've definitely promoted the large village today. And for those of you that want to get a hold of Sergei at RestorationHQ, I know he and his team, it was very easy for me to get a hold of them. They were very responsive, very formidable and professional. So reach out to them if you have any questions. I'm sure he'd be happy to pay it forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you for being on today.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Mac and Bleu Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Bleu podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday